Sentire Media.
This episode is brought to you by the Smart Move Italy app, your free tool for planning, moving, and thriving in Italy. Download it today on iOS and Android. Well, hello there, and welcome back to another episode of A New Life in Italy. I'm your host, Samantha Wilson, and today's episode is one of those topics that nobody really talks about until they're in the thick of it, wondering, why didn't anyone warn me about this part? Well, you've done it. You've got your Elective Residency Visa. You survived the paperwork, the consulate appointment, and maybe a few emotional breakdowns along the way. You're holding that shiny visa in your passport, ready to start your new Italian life. But here's the truth. That visa is not the finish line. It's the entry point, the beginning of your first year in Italy, which for many people turns out to be the most complicated, confusing, and yet transformative year of all. This is the part that nobody really prepares you for. You arrive thinking, I've made it. But then reality hits. Suddenly, it's forms and lineups and new rules and a lot of waiting. And what should feel like the start of your new life in Italy can feel like a full-time job in Italian bureaucracy. So today we are going to pull back the curtain. We'll walk you through what really happens after you arrive on the Elective Residency Visa, step by step, the paperwork, the timelines, the pitfalls, the wins, and even a few ways that you can prepare ahead of time. Because getting the visa is one thing, staying in Italy is another story altogether. Are you ready? Let's get started. I'm Samantha Wilson, Chief Dreammaker at smartmoveitaly.com, and this is A New Life in Italy, a show where each week I take you behind the scenes of what it's really like to move to Italy, introduce you to some fascinating people, answer your questions, and show you how starting a new life in Bel Paese is possible for you. So you have packed up, said your goodbyes, wiped the tears, drank too much wine on the flight over maybe, and you've landed in Italy. You're tired, but you're kind of excited and probably a little nervous. This is a big step and something that you've been working towards probably for years, if not decades. And now you're here in Italy, getting ready to start your new life. You have your luggage and maybe even your little pets. You've picked up your rental, you've driven to your new home, which for many of you, you've never even stepped foot in before. But you find it, you park, you drag all of your suitcases up the stairs or through the cobblestone streets, weaving through tourists. You might be really sweaty, but you arrive in your apartment and you dump everything in the middle of the living room and you exhale because this is it. You're here. But then not long after, reality taps you on the shoulder and says, well, hello there. Welcome to Italy. Now what? Well, now starts the long and sometimes frustrating process of becoming legal in Italy and making sure that you set yourself up for success. Because unlike your old life where you knew everything, had everything naturally as a citizen, now you are in Italy and you are a foreigner and will be starting from scratch. Besides setting up your new home and finding your favorite cafe and wine bar and getting over jet lag and creating a routine, you need to follow a series of steps that must go in a very specific order. And they are super important because if you don't follow each step or do one or several of them incorrectly, your adventure will come to a very abrupt end. So let's dig in step by step so you don't end your adventure and you don't make the mistakes that others have done. Let's start with the very first thing that you have to do, and that is apply for your Permesso di soggiorno. Now, your visa has only allowed you into Italy to apply for this permit. Permesso di soggiorno means permit of stay. And you have to start this process of application within 8 days of your arrival. That is 8 calendar days, not 8 business days, by the way. Your Permesso di soggiorno is what legally allows you to remain in Italy beyond that first 90 days and your entry visa. And it's mandatory for any visa holder in Italy. Now, here's where most people hit their first wall because depending on what visa you have, you will be applying at a different place. Now, for the Elective Residency Visa, which is what we're talking about in this episode, you will apply at your local post office. Actually, technically, you can apply at any post office, but you'll want to go to the local one for ease. Now, within the first day or two of your arrival, you should visit the local post office. You go to this sportello window and you will see the sign and ask them for a Permesso di Soggiorno kit, which, by the way, isn't a kit. It's just an old-fashioned kind of like an envelope filled with forms. A kit, I know, sounds like you're going to get a box of something, but really, it's just an envelope full of paper. And it's free. So take it, say grazie, and leave. Then you're going to walk over to the tobacco shop and you're going to ask for a marca da bollo. And this is a tax stamp. It's a €16 cost and it's like a little sticker with a bunch of numbers on it. Now you will need this for your application. So buy one and tuck it in the envelope. Then you're going to go to the local TIM cellular store or another cell phone store and get an Italian SIM card for an Italian number if you don't already have one. Trust me, you'll thank me later. Then you're going to go home or do whatever you want to do that day. But at the end of the day, you'll go home to fill out the application by hand. Now, it'll take you some time and it is a lot less stressful if you just take everything, take it home and relax, sit down, get comfortable, and do it from home rather than standing in line or around all those people at a post office. You will need a copy of your passport and your visa, of course, proof of health insurance, proof of income, your registered lease, and all of the supporting documents that you used for your original visa application. In fact, I always tell our ERV clients to make 3 copies of everything. One will go to the consulate when you apply for the visa. One goes to the Questura when you're applying for the Permesso di Soggiorno, and keep one for a spare. And of course, always keep your originals. Never, ever give your originals. Now, once you have everything together, then go back to the post office, take the ticket for a Permesso di Soggiorno application, and wait for your number to be called. When it's your turn, go to the clerk at the sportello window, hand them the postal or the entire package. This is that kit. Completed application, all of your documents, and the tax stamp. Now, she will review your documents to make sure that you have everything. They're kind of personable, probably not. It's just a post office. Then you will make the payment, which you can do with your bank card, by the way. You can use a debit card. The cost today, and now it's the end of 2025, is €30 for a postal fee and €70.46 for the actual Permesso di Soggiorno application. And if you add this with that previous €16 tax stamp, it's just over 116 and change euros per person for each application. Now, once you pay, she will either book an appointment for you to attend the next step, which is at the Questura, the main immigration office. You need to go there for your fingerprints and your photographs. Now, some comune will not be able to make those appointments directly, but instead they will tell you that they will send you a text message. And this is why having an Italian SIM card in advance will come in handy. Now, when you're finished at the post office, she will give you a receipt, and you will walk out holding this receipt. That is suddenly one of the most important documents that you own at that time. So treat it that way. This receipt is proof that you have applied your legal obligation, that you have applied for your Permesso di Soggiorno. And this receipt is what allows you to legally stay in Italy while you're waiting for your appointment at the Questura, the immigration office. Now, here's the fun part. The appointment that you're waiting for could be months in the future, 6 months, or even more than a year away, depending on where you are applying from. You just never know. Usually, rule of thumb is if you're applying in a city, it's going to take longer to get that appointment because, of course, there's more applications. But even small towns can take a long time. Every region is different, and during that waiting period, you are technically in limbo. You cannot travel to other Schengen countries, and if you're traveling back home outside of Schengen, you have to be careful to enter and exit only out of Italy, never stopping in another Schengen country. So you will be in limbo until you have your appointment at the Questura and your official Permesso di Soggiorno, because at this stage, you've just applied. You actually don't have your permit. It can be very frustrating, this wait, and you will run into a lot of roadblocks that require a valid Permesso di Soggiorno while you're waiting to proceed, like buying a car or opening a bank or establishing residency or joining the healthcare system or even receiving the shipment of items from your home country duty-free. Without your permit and without your residency, you will pay duty. So you can't do any of those things until you finish this very first step. The first few months in Italy will test your patience and your sense of humor, because this is when you realize that time in Italy moves differently. Things get done, but not always on your timeline. All you can do is wait, by the way. But again, you're in Italy, so the wait really shouldn't be too painful. This is where you want it to be anyway. So just think about that and just enjoy the time. Now, the next thing, once we're moved through the Permesso di Soggiorno application, the next step is to go to the Questura on your appointment. So when that appointment date finally arrives, it can really kind of feel like this milestone, and it really is. But be mindful that you have to go to the appointment date that you were given. You cannot change it. And you were given this date many months in advance, so you really need to plan around it. Technically, you can change that date, but there has to be a very major emergency that's well documented. So don't even go down that route. You know the date you have to go well in advance, so plan for it. Now, on this date, you will go to the immigration office, and the address will be on that receipt that the post office gave you, that golden receipt. Show up about 15 minutes early, bring some water and bring a book, because just because you have an appointment with a time doesn't mean that you're going in at that time. Often you have to wait for hours for your appointment, so be prepared. Bring another set of documents, although you probably won't need them. It's nice and handy to have them just in case. And of course, your passport. Now, when it's finally your turn, you will have your fingerprints taken. You will have your documents reviewed. And if everything goes well, they'll approve your official Permesso di Soggiorno. Now, that is all they do, is approve it, because they don't actually issue you that card at the time. All cards are now printed in Rome. So you will have to wait again for about 1 or 2 months to actually get the card. You will receive another receipt from the Questura after you finish your application, with a website and a little number where you can check the status of your Permesso di Soggiorno card when it will be ready for you to pick up. And when it is ready, you will receive a text message to go and pick it up. And don't be surprised if it takes a very long time, many months. Just keep checking. Now, if you've been waiting for 3, 4, 6 months or more, then you can try to send a PEC registered email. That's PEC. And that is like a registered email address here in Italy. And you can send that to the Questura asking if your card is ready. And when it is ready and it's time to pick it up, you have to go in person. You cannot send anyone on your behalf. You must go in person. Bring your passport and the receipt that the Questura gave you as ID. And then after that, the pickup is fairly simple and fairly fast. Now, once you have it, it truly is time to celebrate. The biggest part of your immigration journey is complete. Well, at least for now, because your permit is usually only good for 12 months. And then you have to renew it again after the first year and start literally the whole process over again. But for now, let's just celebrate that you got your first one. Now, I've seen people go through this process with a lot of panic because they didn't realize how important timing is. For example, if your lease changes before you get your card or your income situation shifts, you will have to redo parts of the process. I remember one time there was a woman who did everything right and she got her visa. She applied for her permesso, and then she decided to move to a smaller village about a month after she applied, but it was in a different region. And that meant that she had to update her permesso application, go through an entirely new round of appointments, and it added 4, maybe even 6 months to her process, endless phone calls and emails to correct the problem of what should have been very straightforward. And the moral of that story is, please do not move around. Try to stay put for at least the first year until you get your first Permesso di Soggiorno. Don't move towns, don't change your address too early, and do not change regions at all costs. Keep everything that you have, every receipt, every document in one safe folder, and take pictures of everything for safekeeping. Now, in Italy, paper matters, so keep those paper receipts. Keep them protected. The card itself, when you get it, is gold. It is your immigration card to Italy, and this is the card that you will use when you start to travel, especially when you're crossing borders. It will be your passport with your Permesso di Soggiorno that will allow you to come and go in and out of Italy from other Schengen countries. So don't lose it, please. That's a whole other episode if you lost your Permesso di Soggiorno. All right, so now we have that taken care of. Let's move on to the next step. So once you have your permesso, you now need to register as a resident in your town or your city. So immigration is always first, the permit to stay, and then we do your residency. Now the process is done at your local comune, so your local town hall. This is where you're living. And the reason you do it is for a number of things. It gives you benefits, but it's also when the comune officially recognizes you as part of the community. And once you have a residency, all of those benefits are open up to you, like you're able to open a bank or buy a car or get your shipment duty free from your home country, enroll in the healthcare system. And of course, you can start banking time towards your long-term permit or eventual citizenship. It is a very important step that you need to be sure is completed and completed correctly. Yes, you will also be deemed a taxable resident in Italy when you register. And if you are on the Elective Residency Visa, you are, by the way, compelled to register your residency. It is a myth. If you hear people on the ERV saying, I've never bothered to do my residency, I'm just coming and going as I please. What will happen is that if you do not complete this step and you go to renew your permesso after the first year, you run an extremely high risk of being denied, especially these days. Remember, the elective residency visa, you are electing to take residency in Italy. So it's part of the fundamental terms of this visa. Now, getting your residency can feel almost, ceremonial. It's when Italy says, okay, you live here now. But of course, there's paperwork because this is Italy. And you need your lease registered with the tax office. You need proof of income, your passport, your permesso, and your private health insurance. It's really nice to keep a file or a folder handy with all of these documents in it. So when you have to go to these appointments, you just grab that folder knowing everything will be inside for you. Now, after you apply, they will give you another receipt. You're going to love these receipts after time. And this receipt says that you have applied for your residency. But then you have to wait for the local police to come and knock on your door at the home that you say you're living in to prove that you actually live there. Now, they may stop by unannounced. They might call. They may not even ever show up. Every town is a little bit different. But in law, they have 45 days to complete that check. And they will never tell you when they will come. So you need to kind of hang around for some time. It doesn't mean you need to sit inside your house for 45 days, but I suggest meeting your neighbors so that they know who you are and that you live there, and make sure that your name is on your mailbox. Because if the police do come and you're not at home, they will check these things and perhaps even speak to your neighbor to see if you really live there. So now either when the police arrive and have finished the check, or you've gone beyond 45 days with no sign of the coppers, then it's time for you to go back to the comune, to the anagrafe office, and complete the process of residency because that 45 days is finished. Once your residency has been approved, you can apply for your identity card, your carta di identità. Now, you will do this at the anagrafe office at the same time that you go and confirm your residency. You'll need to take 4 photos with you and your residency documents and your permit and apply directly through the anagrafe. They will give you this printout of your card, and you can expect the actual card to arrive in the mail in a few weeks. So this is always nice. I think you can also even opt to have it delivered to the comune where you can go pick it up, or your house, whichever you feel is safer. Now, you are an official resident of Italy, but don't open the Prosecco just yet because there's more to do, my friends. All right, let's get into the last bit, and it is a big question. Since you have completed immigration and residency, now you need to ask yourself, how will you handle healthcare? When you first arrive, you'll need private health insurance that meets the visa requirements. Now, typically that covers 30,000 euros with repatriation and covers you in the Schengen. But once you register your residency, you can choose to enroll in Italy's public healthcare system, which is actually pretty good. For many ERV holders, this involves paying a voluntary contribution based on your income. Now, the minimum amount is 2,000 euros per person per calendar year, January 1 to December the 31st. The coverage is pretty good and costs are low compared to other countries, but enrolling can be a little bit confusing. Actually, I'm going to take that back. It can be very confusing, especially if you don't know Italian and you don't know where to go. So let's try to cover off some of these things for you. First of all, remember that enrollment in the Italian healthcare system is from January 1 to December 31st. Now, you can enroll at any point in the year, it doesn't matter, but the fee that you pay is not prorated. So if you joined in November of 2025, you will pay the full 2,000 euros, but only be covered until December 31st of 2025. So it would make sense for you to hang on until January the 1st so you get the full year with your fee to cover your fee because it's not prorated. Where you apply for your tessera sanitaria, so where you enroll in the public healthcare system, is at your local health department or ASLA. Now, this can be really quite confusing to find the right office inside this building. So you usually need to ask around or take a friend or better yet, hire somebody to help you to take you exactly where to go. Now, you'll need your residency registration, your Permesso di soggiorno, proof of income, and several forms that, once again, you will fill out by hand and in Italian. The clerk will ask you to pick a doctor at this time as well, usually by just showing you a list of available names. And I know it's hard to pick somebody, you have no clue, but they won't even give you any direction. So you're just going to have to kind of wing it, close your eyes and point to one, or if you know somebody, in that town that knows a certain doctor and that doctor is taking patients, then you can probably choose them. But you don't have to go to that doctor forever, but this will be your family doctor on record and assigned to you. Then the clerk will evaluate the payment that you have to pay because it's based on your income. It's not just $2,000. It starts at $2,000, and then if you make a lot more money, it can go up from then. Then they will give you the payment slip. So it tells you how much you have to pay. So then you'll take that payment slip and you'll leave and you'll go to your post office again and pay it. They will give you another receipt and then you'll take that receipt and you go back to the ASLA office, the health department, return to the office, show the clerk the proof that you have paid the fee, and then they will complete your enrollment. Now, once you're enrolled, you'll get a tessera sanitaria, and this is another health card. You'll have lots of cards, trust me, in your wallet. They will have a printout of it on the spot that you can use immediately, but this plastic card, like your identity card, will arrive by mail in a few weeks. And that is when you can finally go to your local doctor, you can book appointments, and access specialists for health. Now, I always tell people that this is one of those steps where you go from visitor to resident. You're part of the system now. Congratulations, you did it. And it may have taken over a year, but you have proceeded through all of the immigration and registration stops necessary to start. Now, there's a few more like your SPID, SPID, and other convenient things, but we'll get into that in another episode. For now, you're done. Well, for the first year anyway. The entire process will almost certainly be bumpy, a little bit turbulent along the way, especially if you don't speak Italian. Your first year in Italy is rarely predictable, and people who work in these government offices can often defy that stereotypical Italians, they're so friendly and wonderful. In fact, they will test your patience, they will test your resilience, and actually test your confidence. But you need to complete all of these steps, your permesso di soggiorno, your residency, ID card, healthcare, before you're truly settled. And it's just the beginning because sometimes things change. You might end your lease unexpectedly. Maybe you decide to buy a property, or maybe your income situation changes. Each of these life shifts can trigger more paperwork or new procedures, a new permesso renewal, a new anagrafe registration, even new tax filings. So as much as possible, I urge you to give yourself that very first year or year and a half just to settle, get stable, learn how things work. Make the deadlines, but don't rush. Italy rewards patience. Our residency team has helped hundreds of people, of new arrivals through this process. And I can tell you, they say the same things over and over again. The clients do. I wish I'd known more about how long it takes. I wish I'd asked for help earlier. I wish I'd understood what documents mattered the most. I wish I knew what I was doing. I really wish I spoke Italian. All of these things are always really common things that people wish that they knew ahead of time. So if you're planning your move, the best thing you can do is prepare now. Know what to expect, gather your documents early, and have someone on the ground to guide you once you arrive. Yes, it will be an added expense, but it's only a fraction of the time and the potential losses that you could face if you don't register correctly. And I'll give you an example. We have more than a handful of times. I can't even actually count how many times that we have had people come to us that are ready to do their long-term permit or their citizenship through naturalization because they've been here for so long, only to learn that they never actually registered their residency correct. And they're now back to day one because the line in the sand was never officially drawn to start counting their time here in Italy. And it's tragic, but it can be avoided. So here's what I want you to remember. The visa is just the beginning. It's not the end. It opens the door, but living in Italy, really living here, means learning to move at Italy's pace. There will be moments of frustration. There will be days you think, why does this have to be this stupid and this hard? But there will also be mornings when you wake up in a cafe. But there will also be mornings when you walk to the cafe and you say buongiorno to your neighbor and you realize that you did it and you belong here. So take it step by step, ask for help when you need it, and don't lose sight of why you came in the first place, because the hidden year of residency challenges, that's also the year that you'll start becoming closer to your Italian dream. It's time for listener questions. Just like the old radio call-in shows, my team has picked 3 listener questions, all left on our voicemail. I have no idea what these questions are, but I haven't been stumped yet. Are you ready? Let's get started. All right, my friends, now we're on to the questions. Question number 1. What happens if we buy a house with reduced taxes for prima casa, but do not move our residency with 18 months? All right, really good question. So for those of you who don't know, when you're buying property in Italy, you either pay 2% transfer tax or 9%. 9% is if you're buying a second home, 2% if you're buying a prima casa, your first house, and the house that you will establish your residency in. And you can do this once. And when you do that, you can actually reduce your transfer tax from 9% down to 2%. And you also never pay property tax. And also in Italy, your prima casa can actually never be used as a collection device. If you owe people money, they can never come and take your house from you. It's just one of the benefits of prima casa. Now, if you're not a resident yet of Italy, you can still get this benefit if you promise to become a resident at this house within 18 months. And unfortunately, what has happened and happens a lot is real estate agencies out there that don't understand immigration, which is most of them, and they want to sell a house. So they will explain to the foreigner, sure, take the prima casa, that's fine. You want to live in Italy? Yeah, I want to live in Italy. That's what the buyer will say. So the agent just says, sure, you can do it. Just make sure you do it within 18 months and nobody knows anything more. They sign and they agree to these terms, pay the 2% and off they go. And they realize later they either can't get a visa, can't move to Italy, or didn't understand all the tax implications and weren't really ready. So what happens if you don't move within 18 months? Well, there's penalties. You will pay the difference between 2 and 9% tax. So you have to pay the government that tax that you didn't pay at the beginning. You also will pay a 30% penalty on that difference of that tax. And there's a few other little caveats in there as well, but those are the big ones. Now, I know that I have spoken to people in the past who have been in this situation a lot. One in particular had bought a very expensive house, and actually a house that needed renovation, so it qualified for prima casa. It was in the millions. So the penalty that he was going to pay was substantial. So make sure that if you're taking prima casa, you are absolutely certain that you will be able to establish residency within 18 months. And remember what we talked about this episode. You need to have your visa first, get your permit, and then get your residency. So if you cannot do that, then do not establish or do not elect prima casa. Question number 2. For the elective residency visa, how many months do you realistically have to pay rent before getting approved or denied? Well, it's a great question because, it's one of those things, a cart before the horse. And you have to get a rental before you know you're going to have the visa, which, will cost you some money. Typically, if you try to time it really well, where you sign a lease that starts 2 or 3 months into the future. And by the time you sign the lease, that the timing works perfect, that you can actually apply for your visa at that same time that you sign the lease, and your visa takes 3 months to get, it could line up that when you get your visa is right around the same time that your lease begins. Most cases that doesn't happen. Most cases you should be prepared to pay maybe 1 or 2 months rent prior to getting your visa. Question number 3. I have dual U.S.-Italian citizenship. Can I go and initially spend several months in Italy just to get to know the areas before deciding my permanent location? And the answer is absolutely yes. You are an Italian citizen. It doesn't matter that you're dual, you are Italian. And that means that you do not have to establish residency. You do not have to report anywhere. You don't have to go through a Permesso di soggiorno, nothing. You have every right as a citizen to come here and roam free, my friend, if you want to. When you decide that you want to live in Italy, then you will either buy a house or rent a place. Everything will be registered, and then you will go into the Anagrafe office and establish your residency. And again, the reason you would do that is for those benefits I talked about, which is opening a bank and buying a car and joining the healthcare system. All of these things are benefits of residency. But until you're ready, you have the freedom to come and go as you please. A New Life in Italy podcast is a production of Sentire Media, created and hosted by me, Samantha Wilson. Production by London Nero, and with special thanks to Ali Frothingham, Sofia Pisana, and the entire team at Sentire. Follow A New Life in Italy wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, if you're thinking of moving to Italy, whether full-time, part-time, or for a lifetime, come and see me over at smartmoveitaly.com and we'll help you get here and start living your best life. And don't forget, if you love this episode, please rate and leave a review. It's much appreciated. I can't wait to meet up with you again next week, same time, same place. Ciao for now.
Sentire Media.
This episode is brought to you by the Smart Move Italy app, your free tool for planning, moving, and thriving in Italy. Download it today on iOS and Android. Hey, podcast producers and show hosts. Do you want to join a podcast network that celebrates all things Italian? At Sentire Media, we understand the allure of Italy and its unique culture. Our devoted team of hosts and producers are all driven by their shared passion for Italy. And we work tirelessly to create the best lifestyle podcasts and content that will whisk you away to the very heart of Italy. With us, you can savor the mouth-watering flavors, get lost in the stories from the past, break down the cultural barriers, and truly immerse yourself in the vibrant traditions of this intoxicating country. If you have a great podcast idea or are already in production and would like to join Sentire Media, head over to sentiremedia.com, that's SENTIRE media.com, and find out how to submit your show.